This is the story of how I am 41 weeks pregnant, almost completely broke with only $2,500 in the bank. You're listening to the Magella Says podcast, where life is about money. It's just not only about money. I'm Magella, your host, and in all honesty, I am no money expert. I've had my fair share of failure. In fact, this last year, we came as close as you possibly could to being broke. We're now in the process of rebuilding our lives from scratch, choosing hard now so that we don't have to live a hard life forever. My whole world revolves around trying to create a better life for our family, where we can be outrageously generous with our resources and our time. We're breaking down the money taboo because, let's face it, money touches everything. We can pretend like it's not important, but if we don't learn to control money, it will control us. Hello, welcome to episode 1 of Magella Says. This one is a bit of a throwback episode. It's actually set back when I was 41 weeks pregnant, which if you're watching the video will be quite evident. Oh, poor 41-week Magella. I was very big, very swollen, and very uncomfortable. You might see me keep touching my chest. I had such bad reflux, which is funny because they say if you have reflux, you have a baby that has lots of hair, and Henry had lots of hair when he was born. Basically, I am giving you a little insight into where we were at that point in time, financially speaking. It was interesting watching this one back because I have the hindsight. 2023 Magella, didn't understand what was about to happen, had no clue, and I was filled with hope. And yeah, I have a lot of respect for past Magella and a lot of empathy for what she was about to go through. So yeah, have a listen. And then the next episode, next time you'll see me, will be a throwback to the present, where I'm explaining what happened after we had the baby and the whirlwind that was our life. So clearly I am very pregnant. I'm 41 weeks and we are very close to broke. We went from being very financially stable and on our path to financial freedom to very quickly being broke, because we made a series of very poor decisions that we knew were poor decisions at the time, and yet we did it anyway. So before we get into it, I just wanted to note that whilst it's been incredibly stressful at times, obviously because I'm pregnant and babies cost a lot of money, we feel a little bit of peace despite our financial situation, because we know how we got there, we know what bad decisions were made, and we also have a plan that we're working to get back on track. I am really hoping to create a space that you can come to chat about money and still feel positive about it, even if things aren't going perfectly, not, making millions of dollars like every second person out there on YouTube. So whilst we're working on a plan, it has been a bumpy road. We're not out of the woods just yet, but we're getting there. And shout out to my amazing husband, who is doing absolutely everything he can to make sure that we have the best life ever. Let's get into the story, shall we? I was wondering where to start, and I think the best place to start is from the very beginning of us combining our finances, because I want to show how we were so on track and doing so well, just how quickly by making a few poor decisions that can change. So 2021, 2 years ago, we got married and we combined our finances. We were bright, bushy-tailed young kids getting married, and we had huge dreams to be location independent and to start our own business and to be financially free within a few years. So we set up a tight-knit budget and we quit our jobs and we started working on our business. 2 separate businesses, the one we're working on together and the one that Connor was working on with his business partner. Now his business took off, it was a YouTube channel, and that took off a lot faster than ours did and started bringing income in that first year, and it was awesome. They were earning quite a lot of money from their YouTube channel. The one downside was that it was split between 2 people, so whilst it was a lot of money for the first year on YouTube, it was great, they did really well, it was split between 2 people. So that 100K that they earned ended up being 50K that Connor brought home to us. And I wasn't earning, our other business wasn't earning money yet, we were just putting it back into the business. So we were living on 50K between 2 people for the year.
That's not a lot of money, paying rent, groceries, all the bills, everything. So we had a pretty tight budget. I will say on top of that, that made it all possible at the beginning of the year is that we actually were the recipients of a government scholarship kind of thing for businesses. So we had to put in an application, describe our business. They said, yeah, cool, that's a great business idea, and gave us a little living allowance so that we could work full-time on our business and we didn't have to have another job. It's actually a really great scheme. It's called NEIS, N-E-I-S, if anyone is interested in looking at that. We did qualify for the scholarship because of the requirements at the time. I know that they changed. So anyway, keep an eye on that if you want to start your own business. So yeah, we were living off a tight budget. We managed to fully save our 6 months emergency fund, which was about $15,000. And just before we got married, we did invest in 2 different sort of property investment schemes. They were a bit unusual, not quite like, it wasn't like just buying property. They had a shorter lifespan, so we would see the return on our money within a few years. Yeah, we had invested in property, we'd invested in the stock market, and we'd saved up our emergency fund. Things were looking pretty good, and within the year we hit an 100K net worth. So, you know, for our first year running our own businesses, being location independent, first year married, things were going awesome, and we were very confident and happy in love and life. So I had this bright idea at the end of 2021 that I wanted to live overseas because we were location independent, we didn't have children yet, and I thought, what a great opportunity to go and live somewhere else, work overseas, and we decided to go and live in Bali. We chose Bali because it had such a low cost of living. We'd never been to Bali, so it was a bit of a shock when we got there. It wasn't quite what we imagined, but it was a great experience. By this stage, the NEIS scholarship had finished and we were solely living off Connor's income. But when we got to Bali, that income dropped significantly. Now, the reason it dropped significantly was because they were very much reliant on sponsorships and affiliate income. They had a few different sponsor partners and affiliate partners, but 1 or 2 main ones. Now, those businesses kind of put a pause on those sponsorships, and as that was the majority of their income, it meant that their income was slashed quite dramatically. That was hard. With their negotiations with those companies, it kept feeling like, oh, it'll be resolved by the next month, that kind of thing. They were kind of like stringing them along almost. So it felt like that was going to resolve itself fairly shortly, and we were also about to move to Bali, where the cost of living was, you know, less than half of what the cost of living in Sydney was. For example, the first place, which was the most expensive place we stayed in, was $800 a month. At the time, we were paying $400 a week. So our rent was halved. We weren't too worried at this stage. We also had a great emergency fund saved, so we were like, it'll be fine. We're just going to keep working our plan, keep pushing on the businesses. I mean, look, I say we thought it was fine. Connor is definitely the more positive one of the relationship. He's like the most positive person I know. And he was definitely more the financial vision that everything was going to be okay. I'm a little bit more of a panicker. I think that you can actually see that in our results. The fact that his business took off a lot faster than ours did. I really think that my self-doubt, my worry, all of that, I think that actually translates into the work that I produce and how efficiently I can work. And I think that sort of limiting mindset has been really holding me back in the last few years in regards to business. Whereas for him, he's been like, you know, he has the vision and he really truly believes it, and he makes it happen. So we're about halfway through 2022. We're living in Bali, and we know that at the end of our Bali trip, we have a trip to the United States planned with Connor's family. And we know it's definitely a week because we're going to Disney with them for a week. Oh yeah, so we had planned, we knew this all year. So we knew at the beginning of the year that in October we were going to the States. And at the beginning of the year, our plan was to obviously save up for that holiday. Given that our income dropped significantly, basically to nothing, and we were living off our emergency fund over in Bali, we were unsure what we were going to do about the States, because that's not really our values to use your emergency fund on things like a holiday. We were like, okay, well, we'll see what we can do. If we just go for the week, it shouldn't be that much money. It should be okay. And that was kind of where we had landed. We'll just go for the week, just to go on the family holiday. We won't do anything extra, and that's it. Then in July, I think it was July, end of June, July, we actually fell pregnant. And whilst this was not planned for us, it also wasn't like completely off the table. Like, we had been talking about kids and we wanted to have kids soon, but we just thought that we would probably fall pregnant at the beginning of 2023, especially given where our finances were at, especially, you know, knowing that we were going overseas. We were currently overseas and we're going overseas. Like, just wasn't the best time to be pregnant. We were very happy, but also very shocked. It was not planned, but very welcome news. I should note that just before I found out I was pregnant, so rewind back to Bali, I had actually made the decision to make a bit of a career change, and I had decided that I would jump back into my legal career. The reason I decided this was that I was feeling super deflated about how much money I was making in the business. Like, me personally, how much I was contributing. As I mentioned earlier, I had a lot of self-doubt, and I just sort of felt like I'd spent 6.5 years and a lot of money on my law degree. I still was really interested in law and really passionate about it, and I wanted to learn more about it. And I was super frustrated that we were coming up against legal issues in our business that I half knew, but because I hadn't actually had any lived experience in it, I couldn't action out what I knew with confidence. And so we were having to speak to lawyers and pay for lawyers, and I was like, I have a law degree, this is super frustrating. So I thought, look, now's the time to jump back in, just so that I have absolutely no regrets. And, you know, Connor's still there, he can still work on our business full time, and I can go and get a job as a paralegal and qualify to be admitted as a lawyer. So I had decided that and started applying for jobs, actually got a job, and then, like, within 2 weeks found out that I was pregnant. Just brilliant timing all over. I get really sick quite quickly, and we decide to come home from Bali early, 2 months early. Now, we're thinking our living expenses are going to jump up coming back home, and we're starting to think, okay, how are we going to make this financially work, knowing that in 9 months we're going to be having a baby and we need to, you know, have our finances in order and all of that. So we're thinking about that, and we're also thinking about this trip to the United States. And we're thinking, oh, it doesn't really seem very financially responsible to go overseas to the States where everything is super expensive, especially as the dollar was so bad. So we were kind of like, oh, we don't know what to do. We came home and we stayed with Connor's family. We were all talking about the trip and everything. We'd been very open in saying we weren't really sure what we were going to do. One of our family members made a really convincing argument for us to not only go away for the week, but to take an extra week or two and go away as a couple. Because we got married in the height of COVID, we didn't actually have a honeymoon. Yes, we had just been away in Bali, but we were working, and we were working pretty solidly. Like, we enjoyed Bali and we got the Bali experience and everything, but we weren't on holiday. Connor and I had actually never taken a holiday that was more than 3 nights together. We'd never taken one. We were like, oh, that is, you know, it is actually going to be our last opportunity to go overseas before the baby comes. It's our last opportunity to take that honeymoon. I really didn't want to be one of those people that like was like, oh, the honeymoon we never took. Quality time is like a very big thing for me, and I never wanted to be like that. And at Connor's the same. We did really want to put our marriage first and have that quality experience. So we made the decision to use what was left of our emergency fund in going to the States, not only for the week in Disney, but for 3 extra weeks. So we would take a whole month and we would travel, have a proper honeymoon. Something that kind of was spurring on our poor financial decisions was that in the back of our mind, we knew that our 2 property investments were coming to fruition, if you will, at the end of 2022 and by March of 2023, my due date. So we knew that we had quite a lot of cash coming in by March. And we were like, okay, you know, it's a bit stressful, it's a bit concerning, but we're going to have all this money coming in March. It's not ideal, it's not how principally we would normally run this, but we were like, you know, circumstances, last chance to have a holiday as a couple without kids, all of that. So quick recap of where we're at. It's like August of 2022. I've started a new job at one of the biggest corporate law firms in Australia, which was an absolute dream, by the way. We are living at my parents' place. We're going to take our honeymoon to the States in October. My parents graciously allowed us to live with them, not pay any rent or pay for groceries or anything like that when we got home from Bali, because we knew that we were going away for a month, and we also weren't set on where we were actually going to settle down, whether it would be in Sydney with my family or the Gold Coast with Connor's family. So my parents said, look, until you find your feet again, come live with us, and that's no problem. They were absolute gems about it, and we had a really lovely few months living with them. Very fortunate and blessed to have that, not only emotional support, but financial support. I'm in my first trimester. I am extremely sick and absolutely tired and just like, what is happening to my body, whilst also starting a new career in a completely new job. I'm working, I'm bringing home roughly $800 to $900 a week. We don't have to pay rent, saving as much as we can for the holiday that we're going on. Go to the States and we have a really great trip. Like, we don't go crazy. We didn't stay in fancy hotels and we didn't, you know, splurge, but we didn't skimp either. We made sure that we had a nice time and created great memories. We rented a convertible Mustang and we did a road trip through California on the coastline, and it was awesome. Like, we had a really amazing time, and we spent money on things that we knew would really stick with us, and then we cut costs with things that didn't really matter, like accommodation. We get back from the United States, it's about mid-November, and we come home with approximately $1,000 in our emergency fund and $2,000 that we had saved previously for like other investments. So $3,000 in total is approximately how much money we had between the two of us, and I'm about 20 weeks pregnant at this point, which is about 5 months pregnant, so I have 4 months to go. So we come home and all of the financial stress really settles on me. It really comes down, descends as a big cloud, and I'm like, wow, like that was awesome. It was an amazing trip of a lifetime, was literally the only opportunity we would ever have to do it. So glad we did it, so grateful, but also dumb decision because finance. We're still living with my parents at this stage. We know that we're going to move out in January, and we had at this point decided that we were going to move interstate. We were going to move to the Gold Coast, which again, like really big decision. But again, it was like, this baby's coming. It's probably the last chance that we're going to have to feel like we can make this big move. We don't have any furniture. Well, we don't have a lot of furniture, so there's not as much resistance moving states. Once I have a baby, I might not feel open to a big change, and so the idea of moving to a place that I've never lived in might feel big and scary, and we just might never do it. And I really did want to give Connor the opportunity to live near his family. We decided to move to the Gold Coast. Another series of silly, I mean not silly, just like not financially the savviest decision, because moving interstate does have a lot of big costs. When we get back from America, we know we're moving to the Gold Coast. So we know we have this big change coming up in like a month and a half. And I'm there thinking we also have a baby coming in 4 months. And so by March, my due date, I wanted to have a solid 25K in our emergency fund. Like, that was how much it was going to take for me to feel comfortable and secure and just be like, we've got this. So we start saving pretty hardcore. And while we're doing that, I'm looking at properties to rent up in Queensland. And with every rate hike, the rents jumped up. And I start panicking because we were previously paying $400 a week. We knew that when we came back, rents would have gone up. So we were expecting about $500 a week. And when I first started looking, before we were ready to move, there were properties for $500 a week. By the time December rolled around, knowing that we're moving in January, we had to completely reshift our whole perspective and start looking at $650 at the low end per week for rent, with the likelihood that it would be $700 or $750, which, let's just pause and remember what my income was. It's about $800 to $900 a week. So if rent is $650 to $700, you can really understand the panic. We were doing our best to save, knowing that rent was going to be crazy. We're in December, we're in panic mode, start saving like crazy. From when we came back to the States from mid-November to when we started paying rent in early January, I think we got it to about $7,000 or $8,000 on like an $800 a week income with no rent and no grocery costs. So saved probably about $4,000 in that period. We move in, 6th of January, we start paying rent. We sold everything before we went to Bali except our fridge and our washing machine. So we had to start completely from scratch. And I wasn't too worried about doing this because we had done this when we got married and we furnished our apartment and it looked great. Like, it looked really good and it was fairly cheap. Like, we were on a tight budget back then as well. And we did it all through Facebook Marketplace. When we moved up to the Gold Coast, I very, very quickly realized that Facebook Marketplace up here is totally different. Everyone is treating it like a side hustle. It's not so much, you know, people getting rid of their furniture because they're moving out and they're just happy to sell it for whatever they can. That's the vibe in Sydney for the most part, is good quality furniture. It's going to be thrown out anyway, so they're just selling it. On the Gold Coast, everyone treats Facebook Marketplace like a side hustle. So they are literally selling cheap, ruined furniture for like almost retail price. I'm not even kidding. Everything on Facebook Marketplace up here is from IKEA, and it's like blistering and bubbled, or the paint's chipped, or it's stained, and they want like only $100 off retail. My mind was blown. We still have not bought a chest of drawers because they're $200 to $300, if not more, on Facebook Marketplace, and they're ruined. I think we've done well with what we had. This couch was like $300. This couch and ottoman, like seat, so my feeding chair, that was $200 with the ottoman, and it's like $1,700 full price. So we have managed to score some deals, but that required me to look non-stop. And Connor, he was also looking, but I was looking like non-stop, day and night, all day, refreshing. Maybe like mid-February, not that long ago, we were like pretty much done. We've decided we're not going to buy any other furniture. So it's now currently the end of March, and at the end of the day, we did not get those payouts. Now, unfortunately, that had not been communicated to us. That was very hard news to receive. I mean, obviously we still own that money and that will eventually come, but we are unlikely to see that for the next year and a half. So it's been pushed back quite a bit, and even then it might get pushed back again. Our savings is currently at $2,000 and a bit, and that's it. That's all we have. I'm on maternity leave now. My work has finished up, obviously, because I am 41 weeks pregnant. Connor is still working full-time, very hard on our business, and he's generating money, but it's not a lot. It's not enough to live off. It's coming to crunch time. So at this point, you're probably thinking, Connor just needs to go out and get a paid job, because obviously I can't do that. So we knew this. We knew that we had to boost our income, but we're very dedicated to the dream of owning our own business, where we can have, you know, a really great family life where both parents are present, and we were really pushing it to the last minute. Connor is very qualified. He could have gone out and got any job that he wanted, but we were very intentional in wanting to get a job that would enhance his ability to make more money in the future. Obviously, it gets to the point where we know we need to have some sort of income and the business is not generating enough. So we know that Connor's going to have to go out and get a job and pull back on the business for a little while, and that's super disappointing for both of us, but it is how it is. Amazingly, it's amazing how things work out. The day that I officially finished up work, Connor actually got offered a part-time position that paid the same amount as my full-time job, which was awesome. So he would earn about $1,000 a week. He would still have 20 hours a week or more to put into our business. Obviously, $1,000 a week between two people and a baby, paying $650 a week in rent is not ideal. We're not in a fantastic financial situation. We have $2,500 saved. We're not feeling by any means like secure, but we are very well versed and skilled at budgeting and living on a very tight income. Whilst the stress has not been fully alleviated, we both know that it is for the greater good of our financial life as a family unit to live tightly for this next season until we can start making more money. And we've really prioritized wealth building as opposed to a stable income that has a ceiling.